Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we got a really special guest, someone who's excelling in two completely different worlds, the world of strongman and high ticket sales. Please welcome Paddy Wolfgang Haynes. Paddy, for anyone meeting you for the first time, who are you and how would you describe yourself?
I guess I'm a lot of things to a lot of different people. Fundamentally, I guess it depends on who you ask, but yeah, my favorite labels and titles, would be father, friends, leader. I'm someone who's very passionate, someone who's very direct. Have a pretty strong character and have seen a lot of life and have a lot of adventures. So I think I'm not very good at introductions either. That's something I get told all the time. Too humble for my own good, apparently.
All good, all good. Let's go back a little. Tell us about your childhood. How were you growing up and how would you describe those early years?
My childhood, I was a handful, bit of a firecracker, would always get up to a lot of mischief. And as a result, I was given a lot of autonomy when I was a kid. I was part of that generation of kids where you're seen, you're not heard. But I was able to go out, and bless my parents, they really did try very well. But I would be able to go out as late at night as, midnight when I was as young as 8 years old. And I dropped out of school at 14, got involved with a bunch of people and doing a bunch of stuff I really shouldn't have. So it was joining the army at 17 that really straightened me out a little bit because it was a bit crazy, man, to say the least.
What happened after the army? How does the journey look like from there?
Man, from there I ended up, it was totally crazy. So I got heavily into online gaming when I left the army, and then I met my partner of the time and ended up flying to the other side of the world in New Zealand to be with her and spent 5 years there, which is where my sales journey began, but not before initially I was picking fruit in orchards as an illegal immigrant because I had no visa and I had to support myself. And then that was where I got my first sales gig where I was selling furniture. And so this was 11 years ago now. So pretty crazy.
Nice. Let's go back to your strongman background. How long have you been doing that for? And how did that impact your mindset and the person you are today?
Man, I mean, I've been doing Strongman for what, 4, 5 years now? Really, it started for very different reasons for why I still do it now. And what I mean by that is I'm someone who has started out with a lot of things in life and has been doubted by other people, doubted in ability, doubted in capacity. And so I really just got a kick out of proving people wrong, and proving I can do difficult things to myself. So I remember I went down the gym with one of my buddies all those years ago, and he is a lot bigger than me. And he was deadlifting like 200 kilos, and I could barely pull like 50 kilos off the ground.
Really?
And he was like, "Oh man, like you'll get it." And I just see people looking and just gazing. I was like, "Man, I hate this." And so I kind of had to take that experience and go, "Well, what do I do with that? Do I just kind of slink in my shell and never go back, or do I go, fuck that, I am going to show everybody?" And to be honest, I just kind of used that kind of desire to prove people wrong for long enough, kept going back, punished myself hard enough, and now I'm pretty big and strong, and people, I am strong, and people just assume I'm big and strong, and nobody doubts me anymore. So your reasons change, but that's kind of how I got started.
I'm sure there were tough moments along the way. Was there ever a point in your journey where you wanted to quit, but you didn't? And what kept
Yeah.
you through that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think getting like 2 years into it, when I hit my first, because in 2 years I hit 250 kilos of my deadlift, so I was like, right, I'm getting pretty strong pretty quickly. I started to believe that this is part of my journey in life. And then I was pushing myself very hard, had a world-class coach, world-class nutritionist. Everything was supportive, had like crazy whiteboards on my wall with like everything, like science-based lifting down to a T. And then I got a really bad case of sciatica, and I couldn't deadlift for about 6 months, and I had to go to physio, go to rehab. I couldn't even lay down without being in, absolute agony. And so many times in that, I wanted to just give up. And truth be told, like the only thing that kept me going wasn't some big overarching purpose. It was like, I'm just going to take this a day at a time, just one day at a time, one movement at a time. And maybe if I just hang in there long enough, because I'm a pretty stubborn bastard, that it would figure itself out. And thankfully it did. And then it just carried on from there.
Nice. What would you recommend to anyone starting in the gym? What are the top 3 tips for people? Whether it's the supplements, choosing which split to train or style of training, anything that goes through in your mind?
Yeah, a couple of things do. I think the biggest one that comes to mind is figure out if you want to predominantly be big or be strong. Because you can have both, right? There is a crossover of both, but fundamentally figure that out because that will impact your style of training quite radically. From there, it's don't be afraid to walk up to people in the gym and just be honest about how little you know. Because it's one of those areas that it's very intimidating for a lot of people. The best thing I ever did was join a performance gym when I was still weak. And so that was joining a strongman gym that I remember I walked in, there's a dude, he weighs like 180 kilos, he's 6'5", he's covered head to toe in tattoos, doing like a 400 kilo deadlift for reps, you know, sweating, death metal's playing. I'm just like, oh my God. And I go up to him and I expect him to be really mean and intimidating. And he's just like really nice. And that was what made me join the sport overall, because I was like, oh, these people are all like gentle giants. They're all just really nice human beings to be around. So get yourself in a performance gym. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Get yourself a coach. Probably best supplement for people to just start taking is just get enough B vitamins in you. Like, because there's creatine, there's all these things, but fundamentally you need B vitamins to like metabolize into your liver, help with your hormone support. It all really comes from the gut, is what I lean on now.
Good tips for sure. And how did you get from powerlifting to high ticket sales?
I mean, really, I was in sales first, and then like strongman and powerlifting and all that stuff afterwards. For me, I always wanted to be jacked, and I knew that my colleagues all throughout the years is that people who are jacked just tend to sell more. Like if you're attractive, if you're jacked, if you're those things, you just tend to convert higher and people just give you more respect. And so it just seems like a natural part of the influence that is like, oh, this actually is helping and is translating really, really well. I never really envisioned them crossing over. It wasn't until I worked with James Camp over in Australia that I had the chance to kind of combine the two, where I was a performance coach for men, so working with CEOs, executives, things like that, where I was teaching people influence skills of how to reframe their own state of mind, but then also helping them get their hormones in check, get jacked. I was like, oh, there is a lot of crossover element to that, and it's just kind of grown in this strange organic way.
You've seen some of the biggest names in the coaching industry up close. In your experience, what separates that top 0.1% of coaches from everyone else?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing that comes to mind is A, they've all done the hard yards. This is people that you could literally chart a point, either if it's in high ticket or whatever industry that they've been in, and see that they've kind of earned their stripes very early on doing some difficult stuff and then elevated themselves over the course of many years, rather than there is a tendency in this industry, and naming no names, but there is a tendency if someone closes, gets a couple of piffs, and they're like, cool, I'm a coach now. It's like, well, are you? I think people who take the time to really unpack the psychology, the human behavior, and really formulate some of their own ideas as well, these are kind of the unique hallmarks. Because the biggest question is, like, when you're looking at any information, is what does this mean to me? And I don't think people do that enough in sales.
And here's a question people often get wrong. What's a common misconception about high ticket sales or closing in general? What would you say?
Yeah, I think the two biggest misconceptions is one is that it's easy. No, it's not. It's definitely not.
Straight up.
The second one is that it's this really high octane, really aggressive kind of performance sport to be in. For me personally, the thing that's like elevated my sales, and when I was a commission only closer making $40,000 a month over month consistently, the thing that got me there was two. It was like having such a strong sense of empathy to put myself in that person's shoes. And the second was then having the courage to challenge them. We talk about slaps, and I love using that term as well when I coach people. Like, you got to slap prospects, but really it's having the courage to teach them something that they are blocked and having the empathy to really understand of how they've arrived at that conclusion.
And walk us through your process or mindset when you hop on a call. What's going through your head during a closing conversation?
Yeah, that's a great one. So it is somewhat dependent on how I feel, because I've taken thousands and thousands of calls, and I'm not afraid to admit, sometimes I still get nervous. And sometimes I go on a call and I'm like, damn, I'm going to crush this. And so you have to meet yourself where you're at. if I'm nervous when before I'm approaching a call, I just take it slower. And that's the thing. I think some people have a tendency to like overcompensate, really hype things up, get in the zone. But no, for a call, just slow it all down. Or if I'm really confident, borderline too much, then it's like I have to remind myself that I'm focusing on this person. And so also with that, the kind of everybody talks about being detached to the sale. For me, all that means now is not that I do or don't need the sale. Like, of course I need the sale. I'm here to make money.
Are we here? Yeah.
Exactly, right? But what's changed now is that, okay, this is my process. I'm just going to run my process and I'm just going to see what the outcome is. Am I going to look after this person? Can I measure the results later? And just being far more objective about it rather than trying to pour so much of personal identity into the situation, because then that's making it too much about ourselves rather than them.
That's true. You work in a really high pressure environment. How do
I
you
do.
stay mentally sharp every single day?
Good routine. Good routine is the big one. The more that you take on, whether you're a setter, you're a closer, you're a CSM manager, account manager, because I've done literally everything out here. There's going to be shit you hit with every single day, which just rattles you. It doesn't matter. There's going to be new situations that will test your composure. And so with that in mind, if you don't have a good routine throughout your day, like it will affect you too much. Like get up at the same time every single day, go to bed at the same time every single day, have good square meals, go to the gym, eat good food, take your supplements, go for a walk. It's like I don't think that it needs to be anything too complicated rather than the basics of just like actually looking after your body and having some separation away from the job. If that makes sense. I think people have a tendency to overcomplicate it, that we can't handle hard shit when we are unable to regulate our nervous system. And the best way to regulate your nervous system is by giving it food, water, and sleep and some sunshine.
Simplicity scales, fancy fails, as they say. And back to that, what's one daily habit or ritual that gives you biggest competitive advantage aside from strength training, let's say?
One habit or ritual that gives me the competitive advantage. I think it's kind of wow. There's a few things. If all right, I gotta pick just one of them.
Take a few.
Pick a few. Okay, yeah. One is just embracing everything, and what I mean by that is like no matter what position you're in out here, you're gonna get like feelings of inadequacy, feelings of anxiety, self-judgment, self-doubt. And it's very easy to enter that death spiral, no matter what you're doing, and have like imposter syndrome or whatever we want to call it, right? But if you can lean into that and accept it rather than trying to constantly push it away, you can usually realize that it's trying to guide you somewhere to become a more powerful human. And so, like, if we're all willing to accept that there is an element of truth in everything that haunts us and plagues us, it's like, cool. The only question that's left is, how do I interpret that and what the fuck am I going to do about it? And so, like, the biggest thing that I do every day is I take a note of like a journal, but not, hey, this is what happens per se, but of like, this is all the stuff that bothers me. Because it allows me to observe my own head of like, where am I at? And then what am I going to do about that stuff? Rather than try and battle with myself of, oh, no, it's not true. I am the best. It's like, cool. Well, if I'm not the best, what do I have to do? Well, I got to do more or I got to do something different. And that as a habit just keeps me learning rather than doubting.
And is there a mental model or a philosophy, perhaps, that you live by right now that you like to share?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago that I became deeply interested in the works of Nietzsche, right? The Will to Power being one of my favorite books in there, which like, and I'm going to butcher with a paraphrase, but essentially anything that you do that gives you more personal power is good and is morally good on the basis that you cannot as a man, for example, if we have no capacity to do dangerous things, then choosing to do the right thing has no intrinsic weight or value because there's no other option. Jordan Peterson talks a bit about this when he cites like you have to be a monster in order to be someone who's morally upstanding.
Joe Rogan mentioned that as well, and 100% couldn't agree more. And for listeners who are just starting out and want to get into remote closing, what's the biggest advice you could give them or to give yourself when you started?
I think there's two in mind. One of them is if you have like knowledge or experience in something outside of sales, but like doing solar or door-to-door insurance, don't assume you're going to be good in this industry. Because I had 5 years under my belt selling multi-million dollar real estate deals, doing furniture, appliances, insurance, and I thought I was more than qualified. I was not. I got my face stoved in repeatedly. So one is be humble. The second is like be prepared to either buy your way into a room or do some dirty work and start from the bottom again. And so like sometimes, particularly in those early years, like I would buy coaching courses, yeah, because I needed the training, because I needed to get better, but also the people it was going to put me in contact with that would then elevate my career was massive. And so it's either that you do that or you find somebody that you can lean in and provide value to. Like when I worked at Sales Sniper with Matt Ryder, for example, I would message some of those top closers and I would offer to do their admin for them. It's like, cool, I will do anything to make your life easier. Please just like give me half an hour every single week. And it sounds borderline like begging because it was, because fuck, I didn't know what I was doing. And so it's like, just be prepared to humble yourself. And like, it's a deeply empowering experience of where it leads you long term because of the compounding gains you get of it.
A great example of thinking outside of the box and always doing that extra work. And in your opinion, what skills should closers and people in general should be mastering today if they want to stay ahead of the market in 2026 and moving forward?
Yeah. I think for me it does come down to two fundamentals. Like one of them is like know your product or service so well that you can challenge people on their knowledge of it. Because like one of the things that stops most deals is like the objections. Like, I need to think about it. I need to talk to my wife. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't have the money. If you're not clear, like, on how your product or service is going to better their life and why the value of it is inherently more than the concern that they have, and you can't use logic and emotion to kind of justify that point, beyond the pitch, like you're cooked. Yeah, the pitch is one thing, and sure, like everybody talks about objectionless closes, but due to people's association with money, right? Like people are gonna get scared. Like it's going to happen. And so if you can't have difficult conversations with people when they're feeling uncomfortable, I mean, you're just inherently not very valuable as a sales rep. Like, you're certainly not valuable enough that I want you in one of my teams, unless you're good and I'll train you. But, you know,
Yeah, let's double down on that one. What's the biggest mistakes new closers make that you see in your
They don't
teams?
crit yeah, they don't critically think. People don't critically think. They don't use their brain up here to actually dissect what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're saying things, how it's being perceived. Because they'll listen to me or they'll listen to their favorite sales trainer and they go, oh yeah, that word track slaps. And then they'll just go and say it word for word with no like context on how it's perceived. And then it's like, cool, if you just learn it and ask yourself some basic questions like, what does this mean to me? How does this other person, based on all the information that I've learned about them, likely to receive that? Then maybe you would say it just a little bit differently and kind of tailor or tweak a few things. But I feel like everybody is looking for that silver bullet when they're new into sales, like, and they're making those mistakes all the time.
And flipping that, what do the best buyers have in common? What makes someone a dream client to work with?
Oh, I mean, being problem aware is the biggest one. Being problem aware, obviously. But I think as well, like the best buyers can often seem like bad prospects to people. It's like people who like kind of give you the answers to those questions with all the information up front, which means that sometimes you don't have to overprobe or clarify. Because they come in like, yeah, I've had this problem. It's been going on for X time. It's affecting this. I want to change it now because of this. I've tried this, this, and that. None of it's worked. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, cool, they're just giving it to you on a plate. But some people will be like, well, no, I have to bat them over the head anymore. It's like, no, you don't. Just fucking take their money. Like they literally just want to. You don't have to hard close them. Just do it.
Exactly.
Don't get the ego involved unnecessarily.
And let's get a little personal. What's one thing people would be shocked to learn about you?
One thing that people would be shocked to learn about me. Okay. Far out. Where do we go with this? I spent a number of months being initiated into Quiro shamanism from a Peruvian tribe, and that's what I do as part of my personal life, as part of my philosophy. So I don't make that massively public knowledge, like I don't run it as a business or anything, but in terms of a lens of seeing through the world, yeah, it's something that I do, and most people are a bit shocked by that.
If you weren't in hardly selling team right now or in sales general, what would you be doing?
What would I be doing? Either like racing cars or carpentry, one or the other. I wanted to be an F1 driver for years when I grew up, but I didn't come from money, so that's probably not happening.
Interesting mixture of everything. And do you have a favorite quote or motto that's fueling you right now?
Yeah, eat the weak.
Anything else? Any other postulates or pillars that you live by?
Postulates or pillars that I live by. Yeah, I mean, Hanlon's razor is always a big one. Never attribute the malice that which could be adequately explained by stupidity is a pretty big one. I've run dozens and dozens of businesses. I've scaled dozens of businesses to 7 and 8 figures. I've trained literally thousands of reps at this point. Made pretty good money on my own. Even to myself, like we can all be pretty stupid sometimes. And so if a month goes by and I don't ask myself if I've been a total dumbass, then there's a chance I'm being a dumbass. Because, like, the better you get at any particular skill, the more respected you are in any given community, particularly with gym or with high ticket sales. Everyone just kind of assumes everything that comes out of your mouth is total gold and they listen to you. And sure, that's cool. There's a certain responsibility, but there are plenty of times that, like, a lot of your favorite mentors just say some dumb shit. And so if you don't have the humility to kind of like go, yeah, I don't, then you can kind of end up deluding yourself. I've done it to myself more times than I would care to admit, and life just comes with its backhand and reminds me every single time.
Exactly. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Facebook under Paddy Wolfgang Haynes. You can find me on Instagram if
Drop it
you
in the
want to
chat.
see me lift and see me deadlift 330 kilograms.
Whoa.
On paddy.strongman.haynes. You can find me at Hardly Selling with the crew, with Dean, Will, and Sean. Yeah, those are the main places.
What are some of the biggest lifts right now? You mentioned 300 crazy.
Oh, 330, 340's coming, 340's coming. 330 deadlift, 130 kilo push press, 120 kilo strict press, 200 front squat. Those are some of my biggest and proudest. 170 kilos farmer's pickup, so just with grip. 150 kilo farmer walk for 12 meters. 160 kilo shield carry for 80 meters. Yeah, I love picking up heavy shit.
Is it 50 in each hand or how does it work?
Yeah, 150 each hand, no straps, just these mitts.
Sounds amazing. A lot of homework for our listeners. And finally, if you could leave our audience with one message to level up their life, what would it be?
Man, one message to level up your life, what would it be? Like, dude, it's said so many times and it's such a fucking cliche, but like, literally do one thing that disturbs you today. Can I give like one exercise into that?
It's even better.
All right, perfect. So I got told this years ago, and it's one of my favorite. I use it for reps who struggle to ask like tough, like consequence or cost of an action style questions. And so it's take your phone, find somebody in there who you end up spending time with, either in business or socially, that you don't really like. Text them and say, hey, do you have 10 minutes to catch up? And then call them and tell them exactly how you fucking feel about them.
That's a great one.
Yeah, you want to get good at challenging conversations. You want to ask people to give you 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 fucking dollars. Like, you better get good at asking tough questions. You want
Boom,
to pick
mic
up
drop.
heavy shit? That's it.
Mic drop. Paddy, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure hearing your story and insights. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned for our next episode. And if you really want to level up, check out the description. Till next time, take care. Boom.